Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Welcome to Financial Issues. We are the live portion of the Ministry of Financial Issues Stewardship Ministries. So the focus of most of the things that we talk about is stewardship. We want to be a good steward with all of the things that God has trusted us to manage. We do that by giving you a biblically responsible investment strategy that you can follow, honoring God, weeding out the things in your portfolio that could use shareholder dollars to contribute to causes that are very contrary to your Christian values, like abortion, pornography, the LGBTQ agenda, and all of those things that are just eroding the moral fabric of our country. We also encourage you to be joyful and generous givers. That's the part of stewardship that we hear the most about. So we do address that as well. If you are a partner, by the way, we do have partner commentary that was posted earlier this week. We encourage you to log in and read that once a week. It gives you some more in-depth, a more in-depth look into the things that are making our strategy tick. So log in and make sure that you check that out. Also, if you are a partner, make sure that you are checking your emails, because this week is Partner Conference Call Week. It is going to happen on Thursday, but it's happening a little bit differently this time. I'm going to be teaching through the generational planning brochure that we gave out as a free gift to anyone who donated to our year-end campaign. It is just some out-of-the-box thinking about ways that you can maximize your estate planning. So make sure that you be on the lookout for that. It is a little bit different than our regular format. It's not a call-in type conference call this time. It will be a video that it will be uploaded as soon as we finish with it on Thursday. You'll get a notification by email that it is ready to view, and you'll just most likely go to the same place that you go to log in for conference calls, and there'll be a video there waiting for you. It will be about an hour long, so make sure that you have some time to spend with it, because it's really exciting. It's the most exciting part of what I get to do in the kingdom of God, and that is to help people prepare to pass on the assets that they don't need anymore, that they've accumulated, that they have a surplus at the end of their lives. So make plans for that. On today's show, we're going to be talking about the use of inverse funds as a sort of a hedge of protection, whether you should or shouldn't do it. And we're going to get to a lot of your partnership questions that you've submitted on our website. And if you've got questions, you can go to financialissues.org and click on the Ask Shana tab. You can submit a question there, and we will answer it right here for you on the show. Our stewardship verse today comes from Proverbs 12:27. The lazy man does not roast what he took in hunting, but diligence is man's precious possession. So we often think of material things when we think of possessions, but diligence, the scripture points out, is a precious possession, meaning that not all have it. So it is sort of a gift that we can all ask the Lord for. But a diligent person applies good stewardship principles to make the most of the assets that they are trusted to manage. The lazy, on the other hand, ignores and discounts the value of the things that he has been given by his Creator. We want option number one. That's why you'll hear in the beginning of our show that we are helping you make the most of your money. That's one of the things that we are here to do. And the way that you make the most of your money is to honor God by whatever you're doing. What do you think, Seth?
Yeah, it's good, Shana. Diligence is truly a godly trait. I think it's important to say, too, by the way, it's the opposite of laziness. Diligence doesn't mean that you don't rest. It means that you know when to rest, and you have that right cycle of resting after working hard. And so while, laziness kind of takes rest to too far of a degree. Diligence understands that working hard is good for the glory of God, and like the verse says, it's truly a precious gift. So I hope that we would regard it as such, Shana. That's a good verse to start the show. Well, let's get to our question here, Shana. We had a question that came in from Wyatt in Mississippi, asking, as you said earlier, about inverse funds. So here's his question: do you have an opinion about using inverse funds, like inversing of the NASDAQ, for example, as a hedge against downward market volatility? With wars, recent strike, the election coming up, I can't help but think we'll see some negative markets ahead, at least in the short term. What insight would you have for Wyatt here, Shana?
Well, Wyatt, I would agree with you. I've been, if you're partner and you've been reading our commentary, you have heard all about the concerns that we have for the market and the things that are going on. However, what I would say is that betting on the directions of the market is rarely a good idea. So that's really what you're doing with an inverse fund. If you look at the past 96 years, the S&P 500 has gone up and down every single year. Every year has a 52-week high and a 52-week low. So only 27% of those years had negative total return for the year, which means that 73%, if you're looking at a one-year period, the index makes a positive return. So betting against the index would be a bad move from a long-term perspective. So in my opinion, it's better just to prepare yourself mentally that not every year is going to give you positive returns if you have some money invested in the markets. And you should mentally prepare yourself to ride out those negative years. You know, maybe you want to have a little bit of, maybe you always want to keep a little bit of extra cash, maybe 10% in your portfolio, so that when you do experience one of those negative years, you have some money to put to work. You have some dry powder, as we call it. Because if you stayed invested for 3 years, your chance of losing money is down from 27% to 16%. If you stay invested for 12 years, the odds of losing money over that 5-year period is down to 12%. If you stay invested for 10 years, the odds of losing money in a 10-year period is as low as 6%. That's historically speaking. Now, I need to give the disclaimer that past performance does not get your results. That is a very common thing that you hear in the industry. But, you know, the statistics tell us that what the Bible says, patience is a virtue. And so, you know, rather than trying to be anxious and trying to time the market, there are very few, if any, accurate, profitable, consistent market timers. People may get lucky from time to time, but in my opinion, that's really all it is.
Well said, Shana. You know, speaking of this, I think it begs the question, what exactly is an inverse fund and how does it work and how might it be different from a regular fund, if it's different from it at all?
So this is not my wheelhouse, not something that I'm particularly fond of, so I don't pay much attention to it. But in general, the definition is that it's an exchange-traded fund that produces returns that are opposite of the underlying index or benchmark. So I just told you how many times in a 1, 3, 5-year period, 5, 10-year period that the indices are positive. So this strategy really only works when the markets produce negative returns. So the funds use derivatives, which is a very risky strategy to try to make money on the declining indices.
Speaking of those risks, Shana, what are some other ones, dangers, risks that we should be aware of with this type of investment that sounds pretty risky kind of in and of itself anyway?
Well, I was reading, I was referring to a Bloomberg article about some of these. They were given the best inverse ETFs, and what they said was you should think twice about holding an inverse ETF for longer than 1 day.
Wow. Talk about long-term investing there, my golly.
I think most of the partners that buy into our strategy are long-term minded. Yeah. They're in it for the long term. They understand that investing comes with risk. In fact, every single thing that you do with your money involves risk, even if you put it under your mattress. There's a risk of it burning up. There's a risk of thieves coming in to steal it. There's the real risk, the real inflation risk that you're going to lose purchasing power. So, the other caution that they had was that they're only suitable for sophisticated investors who recognize the challenging dynamics. So, alternatives to that strategy, if you want kind of a hands-off strategy with that has some limited downside protection, which limits the volatility, we have some ETFs that you can take a look at. If you're a partner, they're ETFs number 5, 6, and 7. They have a little bit of an enhanced strategy. They have the ability to go to cash in really volatile markets, and some of them also use some derivatives to take out some of the market risk and make it sort of a market neutral kind of fund. Well, folks, we're coming up on a break. We hope that you're going to stay tuned because we're going to be back with more financial issues. I'm your host, Shana Birch. Stay tuned.
We are indeed facing into the wind of this cultural holocaust to try to provide loving, compassionate, Christ-centered answers to these women. The greatest thing they need is the ability to make sound judgment decisions in their life, and that comes from the Lord Jesus Christ, a heart change that only He can bring. So we're evangelists to these women on behalf of the Financial Issues audience and helping them to be able to move forward with wisdom in their lives when they come in, not just to save the life of their baby, but also to save the soul of the mom and the baby eventually as well. You know, it's one thing to talk about it, but it's certainly another thing, and so encouraging to see the pro-life ministry, a financial issue stewardship ministry, take a stand on this thing, as we've done.
Yes, sir.
Go to financialissues.org/preborn to learn more about preborn.
There are moments in life that define us. Choices determine the courses we take. Choices that create life, or those that save a life. And some make life worthwhile. There are decisions to stay or to go, to remain the same or to grow. Sometimes we pray and make peace. Other times we take a stand for what we believe. In celebration, mourning, triumph, and defeat, we are invested in every decision we seek. Despite differences, we have one thing in common, the desire to do all for the glory of God. Keep your wallet aligned with your heart and your investments in harmony with your faith. Timothy Plan, biblically responsible mutual funds, ETFs, and retirement plans. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objective, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Read carefully before investing.
Welcome back, everybody. Financial Issues. Shana, thank you for your explanation to that question there. I hope that was helpful for Wyatt and for many others listening also. Interesting headline here I wanted to get your thoughts on, Shana. So earlier this week, Nvidia continues to impress. It closed at a new record on Monday. The market cap for the company topped $3.4 trillion. So this is due mostly to massive AI demand. The company, again, now worth over $3.4 trillion, is up more than 9-fold since the beginning of last year, and the second most valuable U.S. stock behind only Apple at $3.5 trillion. Companies like Microsoft, Meta, Google, Amazon, they're all kind of bound to Nvidia because they're purchasing these processing units in large quantities to build these large clusters of computers for AI. Shana, we've talked about this on the show before, that AI seems to really be gaining steam here. What do we make of all of this?
Well, I agree. I mean, it is, I think it's going to be as big as the internet. I mean, I don't know if you could remember when the internet became popular and, you know, people started to, I think it's kind of a way of life for most young people, and they don't realize that it hasn't always been around. So, you know, it is definitely a big thing. Nvidia right now is still biblically responsible. It was on our list in the past. Actually, it was on our list maybe 3-4 years ago, before it really had its big run up. It was one of the things that our founder, Dan Celia, he put it on the list, and he said, this is a must-own stock for the long term. And boy, was he right.
He was sure right. Yeah. My golly.
He was sure right. So, I know a lot of our partners have made a lot of money in that particular stock. There are some concerning signs that we see in the biblically responsible space. We are going to be putting together a petition to try to reach out to Nvidia and ask them, hey, don't go down this road. Please don't go down this road. But, we are committed to biblically responsible investing, and if we have to, we will sell it, because honoring God is more important than bending the knee to the almighty dollar. And so, the good news about that is that even if we have to sell it, there are lots of stocks that are going to benefit and that are benefiting from this AI trend. I'll abstain from giving an opinion on whether AI is good or evil. I mean, I think sort of like the internet, it can be used for both. I think you guys even use it for some things here at the ministry to,
for sure.
To increase productivity. It's going to bring great increases in productivity. So it's going to bring changes in the way that people are trained for the jobs that they're going to be getting in the future. Ran across a recent headline that the Biden administration officials have discussed capping sales of advanced AI chips to some countries like China. But what I would say is to that is, does anybody really care what Biden's doing? I mean, whatever he's doing, it's all going to be undone in a really short time anyway. And the other part of that question is, does Biden even know what he's doing right now? So we won't go down that rabbit trail either. But no, AI is definitely a major trend going forward. If you read through the description of some of the companies on our buy list, you're going to see the connection there. So one of the things that AI is going to need is a lot of energy. And that's going to mean all kinds of energy. Depending on who takes office, we'll see if it's black gold or green inefficient things that cost a lot of money. But the bottom line is that AI is going to need a lot of energy. So that means coal, that means nuclear. That's one of the themes that we're following in our research right now. Hopefully we'll have something that comes on the buy list in that space pretty soon. It's also going to mean oil. The population of the earth is increasing. That tends to put increased demands on energy going forward, and AI is just going to put that on steroids. And so, we think it is a trend that's going to happen, and we're following that behavioral pattern, to try to pick out the companies that are going to do well. We've had several on our list that have, not just Nvidia. There's another utility company that really has exploded. A lot of partners have made a lot of money on that one as well, and it's a utility company, but they're in that space where they're providing a lot of electricity to the data centers that need a lot of electricity.
Yep. And Shana, I was thinking about that too. I just can't help but think that, it seems like Nvidia could be paving the way for other companies to be able to get into the AI stuff too and be able to have success off it also.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's a lot. You need server space. You need places to house all these computers. You need cybersecurity. That's another thing. We already have things on our buy list regarding that space too.
Yep. Good stuff. Well, we got some questions here, Shana, I'd love to get to, if you don't mind, shall we?
Let's do it.
Let's get George, 86 years old. George is looking at the buy list and the broad list, and he's wondering, why don't we show the annual dividend percentage that the particular stocks are paying along with the other information offered? Or is he just unsure of where to find it? Or can you tell him how to find that out? What do you think for George?
I think the second part of that might be the case. So whenever you go into, whether you're on the broad list or the buy list, I think there used to be like a little I button, a little circle with an I, but I don't see that anymore. But if you just click on the price, the share price of the stock, it's going to pop up a new window, and it's going to show you the information there. The dividend yield is included there. You click on the price. Now, the new site will be much better for displaying this information for you. It's going to, and we should be launching fairly soon. We're going to be beta testing in short order, and then as soon as we make sure all the bugs and all the kinks are worked out, we'll be releasing the new site to the partners. And so it'll be a sortable list. You'll be able to use filters. You won't have to click from one page to another to get to different sectors. We'll also have more information in that. When you're looking at the description of the company, we'll have more information there too, and yield will definitely be one of them.
Awesome, Shana. CJ is up next, 55 years old. CJ's asking, what are your thoughts on using Greenlight for my kids? I'm thinking about setting up an account, but I wanted to see if they were vetted by us or if there are other options that have been vetted. What do you think for CJ?
They are. They have not been vetted by the ministry. I've mentioned it a couple of years ago, and it's a project that maybe we'll look into. But I personally use it for my kids, so it's a really neat kind of thing. Your kids get their own card. They can have their picture on the front of it if they want to, but it works just like a credit card. It's not just like a credit card. It's more like a prepaid credit card, I guess you could say. But you just you can link your bank account to it as a parent. I've got an app on my phone. I can send money to my kids in a second. I can put it in their different categories. So, for example, we pay our kids $20 a week to do chores, and of that we have automatically $2 goes into their giving account, $2 goes into their savings account, and then $16 goes into their account where they can spend it on whatever they want. So then they get the ability to choose where they want to give the money. They have the ability to build up a savings account, and it teaches them great stewardship. You also have the opportunity to be able to pay them interest on their savings. Now, you pay it as the parent out of your own money, but I mean, there's just a lot of really great features that you can use. You can shut it off right from the app. So if they lose their card, you can turn it off, and it's really helped to teach my kids a lot of responsibility about money.
Awesome, Shana. Yeah, it's very cool. And it's just like an investment app. Is that how people can, get it if they just go to the App Store?
Yeah, you just go to the App Store, and then of course you have to open an account, just like kind of using PayPal or Venmo or something like that. You connect it to your bank account, and you can send money different ways. But it's a really neat tool.
Yeah, awesome. Eric's up next.
You can even share your link with other people that, like, for birthdays and Christmas, that want to give them money. Nice. They can put money directly on their card.
Very cool. I like that interest option. Teaching them about interest early is cool. Yeah,
it does,
awesome.
And they have a lot of videos that the kids can watch, and they can earn points for learning how. They even have an investment option, but I'm not suggesting that because they don't teach biblically responsible investing. So.
Yep, very cool. Next one, Shana, is Eric. He does not say his age, but he's saying, I'm here in the stock market. Could take a big hit or crash depending on who wins. Any thoughts, maybe trailing limit? I'm a partner. My portfolio is there to look at if you are allowed to. What would you have for Eric, Shana? Not too far off from the topic we talked about at the top of the show.
Yeah. So, Eric, we don't get a chance to look at portfolios. We unfortunately don't have the time to do all of that. But, I do share your concerns. If you've been reading the partner commentary, which I bet you do, you're hearing our thoughts every single week, my thoughts, the thoughts of the investment committee, about where we are. So do I think we're overextended in a lot of things? Yeah, I do. But the counter argument to that could be there's over $6 trillion in money markets. And there's been $6 trillion in money markets. And every time we take a little bit of a pullback in the markets, that money comes flooding in to sort of put in a V bottom, and then it races back up. There's just a lot of liquidity out there, and that makes it, I think, difficult for an extended downturn to happen, because the other side of the coin is inflation. If your money's sitting in cash, eventually with interest rates going down, you're not going to be earning the 5% that you're earning anymore. That's really going to be a stimulus for money going into the market. So, I think that one outcome of the election is going to be bad. I think it's going to fundamentally change the United States, our economy, and everything else that we know of. But I think that scenario is hopefully the least likely, even if there is a win on the left side, a move towards Marxism and communism. Hopefully that will be counterbalanced by Congress. Hopefully it won't be a sweep in that direction, because that would be really bad. And yes, I do hear the same things that you do, that the market, take a big hit or crash if that's the case. I'm not going there. If you read through our strategy, we are suggesting a little bit heavier in cash until after the election, but certainly not getting all out. Well, folks, we have come to the end of the short program today. Unless you are listening to the live program or on an outlet that carries the full version of the show, we bid you a farewell. For the rest of you, stick around because we've got more financial issues to come.
It's easy to get caught up in the rush and forget about what really matters. Too often, we invest in stocks without knowing what they stand for. When your investments align with your values, your money speaks for you, because biblical values matter, even when investing. Learn how to invest biblically and responsibly. Visit financialissues.org to learn more. That's financialissues.org.
Hi, this is Shana Bird, the host of Financial Issues. The Financial Issues family is so blessed to have saved tens of thousands of babies, all thanks to the generous support of you, our listeners and viewers. For $140, you can sponsor 5 ultrasounds. Please go to preborn.org, that's preborn.org, or financialissues.org and click on the Preborn logo. Save a baby, save a life.
When it comes to money, I always have so many questions. I never know where to go to get answers to those questions. They never really teach you this stuff in school, like some of the best ways to handle it, how to save, when to invest, where to invest, even just what to do with the money. And if I put it in the stock market, what's the best way to protect from losing it all? That fear can be paralyzing. You don't really know what decisions to make. As a Christian, I don't want to give my money to people who are going to use it for things that God hates. When I discovered Financial Issues, it was like a burden was lifted off my shoulders. Not only did I gain access to a simple investment strategy that I can manage myself, I also have the peace of mind that my money will not be going to companies that actively promote things that God hates. Financial Issues has allowed me to experience peace in my investments.
Invest your money in a God-honoring way. Go to financialissues.org.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shana are hers alone and are for informational purposes only and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Welcome back to Financial Issues, everybody. Seth Udinsky with you here. Hope you enjoyed that last segment there with Shana. Great to be here with you all. We'll take a look at the markets in just a moment. They just opened about 5 minutes ago. But before we do all of that, I got a special treat for you all. My dear friend, Craig Haugaard, one of the most brilliant and handsome people that I have ever met in my entire life, is on the program with me for a live ag report this morning. Craig, welcome back, buddy. It's great to have you.
Well, thank you. I've always admired your ability to spot the obvious.
You know it, brother. Listen, the brilliance meter on the show just went into high gear here. This is great. Craig, I appreciate you coming back on, brother. Hey, let's get started with the recent East Coast dock worker strike. So I've been meaning to ask you just your whole thoughts on this in general. I know it was pretty short-lived. What impact have you observed so far that the strike had, particularly on the agricultural industry in the nation? I have to think that there was some kind of impact.
You know, if there was, it was really minimal at this point. The big concern was there's a lot of fertilizer that flows through those ports.
Yeah.
And had this thing strung out, we would have really been possibly hamstrung on getting the fertilizer we need to get applied this fall so you're ready to go next spring with that crop. So thankfully that didn't materialize. And then in terms of exporting goods, on those ports that were striking, it was all containerized. And so, like for China, for example, about 6% of all of our food trade to China would have been through ports that were impacted. Also, Vietnam was in there, and in some of those. So, had that strung out, it would have had an impact on the amount of grain being shipped. I guess Indonesia would have been the third one. Indonesia, Vietnam, and China were the big three that were going to be impacted by our ability to trade with them. So they reached an agreement for a very substantial raise.
Yeah.
And as I understand it, the big stumbling block now is whether these facilities are going to be able to move forward with the automation of the ports, and that's been a big thing that the unions were trying to stop from happening, was getting these ports more fully automated. So it'll be interesting now that they've been given that big raise to see if they dig in their heels on the automation once we get past the election and into January, when we'll either come to an agreement or go back out on strike. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Craig. A percent raise, which I believe is what they got. Not what they asked for. I think they asked for up in the 70s. That's no joke.
They were asking for, I believe, 77%.
77, yeah.
And they were, and the ports were at 50%, and they settled at 62%, which is a pretty healthy pop, you know.
Absolutely. And I can't help but think, and this is more of a financial perspective here, but I mean that's going to have an impact. I mean, you're talking about paying all your employees that much more than they were before. It's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out for sure.
Well, it's the cost of bananas is going to go up. So it's kind of it's a weird little thing, but 75% of all the bananas in the United States that are consumed come through ports that are impacted by the stealing. So as you look for grocery store impact, you can't give somebody a 62% raise and not expect to see that reflected in cost of goods that are coming through those ports and that type of thing. And with that being the center of the banana universe, that'll be one area I think where you'll actually see an increase in bananas directly related to the size of the raise that these guys were given.
Yeah, and with that price increase, Craig, could that have kind of a tertiary impact on other fruit, vegetables as well?
I think so. I don't know how many cherries are imported, but I do know that 90% of the imported cherries come through there. 82% of hot peppers come through there as well. So there's a lot of kind of some of those things that maybe you don't think about a lot, but that are really the ports that are really crucial to them getting into our nation. So, there'll be some other areas too that'll definitely have an impact.
Definitely. So, folks, if you're looking for cheaper groceries, might not happen at any time soon, which is a bummer. But, Craig, I really appreciate you bringing that up to us nonetheless, brother. Let's switch gears here a little bit. We actually got a question from a listener recently. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. This was George from North Carolina, asked this several weeks ago. He said, government regulations and intervention have had a very negative effect on farmers, ranchers, and the American consumer. Craig, what should we do to prepare for the worst case scenario in the near future and beyond? And I'm not sure if George is asking from the perspective of if he's doing a little farming himself or if he's just wondering generally. What are your thoughts on that, brother?
I think that obviously we're coming up on an election here, and we really need to do something to turn back the size and scope of government. In 1946, we had the Administrative Procedures Act passed. That really governs how regulations are set forth. And then on the heels of that, we've had a string of Supreme Court decisions that have continued to grant federal agencies, through the principle of deference, a lot more latitude in interpreting the laws. So now you've got federal agencies interpreting federal laws in ways that were never approved by Congress, right? And it's resulted in some really crazy decisions. We've got a case going on in California right now where the farmer, in this case, it's a vineyard, I guess 60-acre vineyard, and it's in Santa Clara County, which is a very expensive county to try and live in. And so he had his main farm manager, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Martinez, married with 3 children, and they brought in a trailer and have it hooked up, and it's out of sight of everything, and it's basically providing a place for his employee to live, right? Well, there was an anonymous complaint, totally unrelated to this, that came in, and so government officials came on his land and found there was nothing to the complaint that had been filed, but spotted the trailer and has ordered him to remove that and basically kick this guy out. Because it doesn't meet some of the federal or some of the governmental standards. So far, the farmer's refusing to do that. He's been assessed, I think, $120,000 in fines at this point. But it's one of those cases where literally, if this guy, if he makes this family homeless, the government would be fine with that. He can sleep on the street. That's not against the law, apparently. But yet providing housing for an employee on your own land is found to be illegal and something that they're assigning pretty draconian fines against. So we see things like that. The other thing that I think is going to become up more here, and that's the impact that or the ability of the federal government to come onto private land. This has been going on for a while, but it's the principle of open fields. It goes back to 1924 in a case that involved bootleg liquor, moonshine, where they held that an individual has no legitimate expectation that open fields were going to be free from warrantless intrusion by government officers. And that's continued to be built on, and to the point now that I believe like 96% of all the farmland in this country can federal employees or federal officers can go on that land, investigate, do whatever they want, and there's no need to have any sort of paperwork or any cause for going on that land. It's just power that they've accumulated, and
wow. So those kinds of things continue to pop up and be abused, frankly. So I think our only real hope there, though, is government that would actually roll back kind of the power that they've assembled and amassed for themselves. And as I look at the choices this year, there's one that I think would just increase the government seizure of power, and the other that maybe gives us
slight chance for some sort of a rollback.
Yep, absolutely. Boy, that's some scary stuff, Craig, but I really appreciate you bringing that up to us, and something that we don't always think about. But man, we're seeing a tyrannical government here. I just can't help but think that, now I'm not saying every member of government is this way, but, growing up, I would think, there's some bad apples there. Now I'm thinking, man, our government, there's a lot of evil people in this. And so it's something that I completely stand with you there. There's a couple options before us, and we got to steward our vote well for sure. Hey, brother, really quickly here before we sign off, give us an update on your health. We've been praying for you. We know you have a surgery coming up. How can we pray for you?
Yeah, no, I would just continue ask for prayer there. It's I think it's going well.
Yeah, good.
It's not been the year of my dreams, obviously. it's been a tough year, but right now things seem to be moving pretty well. So hopefully this next surgery will go well. And then the big fear there is that my bladder was going to refuse to function again like it did last time.
Yeah.
So I guess just be praying that everything keeps working on the heels of this next one.
Absolutely. We will do it, brother. Folks, that's Craig Haugaard, our faithful financial issues ag reporter, my dear friend. Craig, we appreciate you so much, brother. Thanks for joining us today. We'll be right back, folks. More financial issues right after this.
Are you a Christian seeking to align your investments with your faith? I'm Shana Burt, host of the program Financial Issues. During our program, we share valuable information about the financial issues of the day, including how markets and the economy are moving and how public companies are behaving, helping you to make wise decisions with your investments and the money that the Lord has blessed you with. Using biblical standards, we provide you with valuable financial insight based upon Scripture, making it easy for you to invest in a way that aligns with your values. I can assume that most of you have investments in a 401k or IRA, but what I am sure of is most of you have no clue that the companies in your mutual funds may be funding the LGBTQ agenda, pornography, abortion, the list goes on and on. By listening to Financial Issues, you will learn how to get rid of those investments that are dishonoring God.
Become a partner today by simply going to financialissues.org/join. Click the green button to become a partner today. How is Timothy Plan continuing to lead the fight as you guys now enter your fourth decade of leading this fight of biblically responsible investing?
We've been too silent for too long, and we can no longer be silent. You stand up like Ronald Reagan said, we're only one generation away from losing all of our liberty. Yeah. It has to be fought for. I wish it didn't. And you can fight for it. You don't need guns and ammunition and that. You can fight for it, especially with your dollars, because it's always about the money. And when the money starts impacting people, they start paying attention. When we launched this, they said it couldn't be done, but here we are 30 years later. They said you couldn't get competitive returns, but here we are.
What a tremendous testament of God's grace.
Go to financialissues.org/Timothy Plans to learn more about Timothy Plan.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Welcome back to Financial Issues, everybody. Hope you enjoyed having Craig on. I always love when Craig gets to come on with me. Craig lightens. So I'll be frank with you all. When I started hosting the show, I was very nervous. Now, 2 years in, getting to do it with Shana, the nerves have eased a little bit, but there's always still this leftover nervousness where, I still get nervous doing this. I don't want to say something stupid. When Craig comes on, he just eases me, and it makes me feel. I just love getting to have him on. I feel like I can be myself with him. So we just appreciate Craig so much, and boy, just a great brother, great friend of the ministry, and of course, in all seriousness, a brilliant guy. So just so thankful for him. So, well, we said we'd take a look at the markets here, folks. They did just open about 15 minutes ago. Yesterday, they slipped back into negative territory. They had a record day on Monday. By midday, benchmark indices were down. Nvidia was leading the way down. You heard us mention earlier on today's show how it had hit those record highs. Now the second largest company in the country, publicly traded company that is, hit record highs earlier this week. Came back down following what really was a disappointing earnings call, not from Nvidia, but from a company called ASML, which is a Dutch-based semiconductor company. They dropped 17% yesterday. And it did impact some of the heavy-hitting chip makers, Nvidia included. Not to that degree, but it impacted a little bit, which in turn drove the NASDAQ down by midday. So the other indices followed suit. Late afternoon, it was the same deal. And by Tuesday's closing bell, all three indices down close to a full percentage point. The Dow was down 0.75%. Same with the S&P. The NASDAQ slightly more than a full percentage point in the negative. So nothing to sneeze at, but just a considerable downward trend there yesterday. The pre-markets were kind of mixed this morning, and the markets have opened mixed as well. Pretty close to the flat line here. The Dow Jones is up a third. The S&P 500 is just below the flat line, barely, and the NASDAQ is down about a third. So that's what the markets are looking like today. Hey, folks, want to remind you about one of our dear sponsors here at the ministry. Samaritan Ministries is doing some great work. I'm in the midst of several needs that I actually have being shared right now. One is my pregnant wife, and the other is Josiah for his surgery coming up. Many of you have been praying for that. Appreciate those prayers so much, but we really couldn't. It would be far more of a headache, in my opinion, to have to deal with all of this if we didn't have Samaritan Ministries by our side. They are just doing some great work, and I'm so grateful to have them as my health sharing. I know the other staff members here at the ministry are as well. So you got to check them out. If you're on Medicare as well, Samaritan's a great option for you if you're looking for something supplemental. So 1-877-764-2426. You can visit them at SamaritanMinistries.org as well. So you heard Shana mention earlier on the show, tomorrow, the conference call. A little bit of a different format here, folks. Shanna's going to be sharing this instructional video where she goes step by step over that generational planning booklet we've been talking about. This was a gift that we all have pledged to you. Many of you have received it by this point, which is great. All of you who donated to FISM for our end of fiscal year campaign that we just did, you all should have received this booklet. If you have not received it and you would like to, there is still time today to donate. If you make a donation to the ministry of any amount as the Lord leads you to give, we will give you this downloadable PDF that Shana will then teach through during tomorrow's conference call. So the deadline is the end of the day today. End of the day today. So if you have not given yet, you want this really good generational planning booklet, make a donation to the ministry today, and we will send it to you so that you can have it for tomorrow's conference call. Now, again, the conference call is not a call-in. It's not the usual call-in. It's going to be a video format. Shana is going to teach through this PDF, and then we will have this video up ready for you. I believe we'll send out an alert when the video is posted, so as soon as it's up there, go ahead and watch that video. Different format of the conference call this time, folks, just so you're not a little bit surprised if you are expecting to be on the call tomorrow and no one is on there. That's why. It's a little bit of a different format. But we are excited for it. It's been emailed to you as an attachment in PDF format. You can download it, print it at your convenience. Make sure to have it on hand for tomorrow when you join the conference call. And I hope that many of you will join the conference call. And if what I just said sounds like gobbledygook to you, maybe it's because you are not a partner and need to become one. So for $132 a year, it is a tremendous investment so that you can then learn to invest your money in a way that honors God. Investments. However, we do believe that there are ways to do it that are right and ways to do it that give you the best chance of success. And our way is biblically responsible investing. So consider becoming a partner today if you're not one. Financialissues.org. Click that Become a Partner button. And if you do that, you will have access to Shana's conference call tomorrow. We got some more earnings out today. Morgan Stanley reported earnings this morning. They were beating the expectations per share. Their profit was $3.2 billion. That was up 32%. Revenue was up 16%. So pretty good earnings call for Morgan Stanley, one of the big ones on Wall Street there. All right, Sam, I know we have one question that we can get to here. Let's get to Jay from Texas. Sam, what do we have?
Yes, indeed we do. We have Jay from Texas. He says, may have missed it, but could FISM give us a way to donate to victims of the recent hurricanes in the damage in North Carolina?
Jay, thanks for that question. Yes, we don't have a particular place on our website that you can go to, but I would push you to Samaritan's Purse. I would tell you to start there. SamaritansPurse.org is the place to go. They're on the front lines. We had Edward Graham, the COO of Samaritan's Purse, on our show several weeks ago. I think it was in mid-September. So SamaritansPurse.org. If you go there on their homepage, there's a green button under Responding to Hurricane Helene at the top of the page. Click that button. That takes you to a place where you can donate securely. The second thing I'd tell you, Jay, is maybe check with your pastor. I know many churches are sending teams, maybe sending resources down to the impacted areas. In fact, our church actually just sent a team with Samaritan's Purse down to, I think it might have been Florida, but they're sending another team later this month down to Asheville. So if your church is connected in any way, your pastor might be a good place to start there. You might even consider giving of your time and skills. If you've got those skills, maybe consider going on a trip if you have the time to do it, or maybe they'll provide ways for you to be able to give in a little bit of a different way than just sending a donation to them. But that's where I would tell you to go and check if you want to help the believers impacted in those areas, and really everyone impacted in those areas. By the way, folks, speaking of that, tomorrow I'm going to have Art Alley on the program with me, and that's one of the questions I'm going to ask him is how he and the team are doing. I know they got hit pretty hard by the hurricane. Fortunately, everybody's good, but we'll hear an update from him tomorrow, so you're going to want to stay tuned for tomorrow's show. All right, Sam, let's finish out the show today with a couple of headlines here. What do we got in the economic sphere in terms of news?
Well, it's not entirely good news, Seth, because a new poll coming out from the New York Fed and reported by Bloomberg, says that 1 in 7 middle-class American households now fear missing a payment, being delinquent on their payments sometime in the next 3 months. That's actually the highest number we've seen since April of 2020. The exact number is 14.2% of middle-class American households are afraid of missing those payments. So now you can imagine that this is weighing into the election, because we're hearing again and again that people say their top concern is the economy, no matter how much you see the government trying to say, no, the economy's good, inflation's cooling, and, jobs are coming back, but that embedded inflation is really just weighing people down. So as you can understand, 42% of Americans now say, according to a separate poll, that they would trust Donald Trump more with their personal finances than the current administration, i.e. Kamala Harris. That survey was released by Bankrate on Tuesday. 45% said Trump would be best for the economy overall beyond their personal finances, compared to just 40% who said the same thing about Kamala Harris.
Very interesting, Sam. Thanks for sharing that there. Folks, there's a couple things that I want us to remember with this. And don't forget this, the source of all this, because, with that first headline there, you wonder, okay, people are, the chances of them potentially not being able to make their payments is rising. We have to wonder, where's this coming from? Are they just not good with their money, or is this more of a broader economic problem? I think we have to remember, maybe that's true. Maybe they are not good with their money, and I would tell you, please, be a good steward with the money that you have. But don't forget the situation that you're living in as well, that uncontrolled government spending fueled by uncontrolled pumping of money into the economy is certainly not helping this. Sam, would you agree with that? It's probably not going, it's probably like pouring gasoline on the fire as opposed to a fire extinguisher.
Well, exactly. You got to understand that this has been on the increase. So I highly doubt that you have people that were previously responsible with their money all of a sudden just together saying, you know what, we're just going to spend like crazy. I have a feeling that, like you said, that might be part of the problem, but I find it highly unlikely that just all of a sudden we're living in an economic environment where people just want to say, hey, throw caution to the wind. I'm just going to spend money willy-nilly. It does seem like there's some broader factors going on here.
There's something else going on here, absolutely. One of my favorite kids shows, coolest kids shows in recent memory, Tuttle Twins by Angel Studios. I love Tuttle Twins. In one of their shows, they famously quipped, "Inflation hurts a nation." And boy, it sure does. It sure does. Inflation hurts a nation. Regardless of which candidate you may prefer for personal finances, folks, referring to that second headline Sam mentioned there, we need to use the faculties God has given us to make a sound decision in 3 weeks at the polls. We really do. I think it's worth noting that the Harris administration has had 3.5 years to make the economy better, and so far, it hasn't happened. Now, she's not to the same degree that she would as president, obviously. She's the vice president right now. If she were president, it might look a little different, but it's the same administration, and no changes have been made. The question we have to ask is, what makes us think she'd change her mind now? It's just something something to think for us, folks. Don't overestimate the importance of emergency savings. I can't help but think if those 14% of Americans had an emergency fund, maybe they do, but maybe some of them don't, and they might feel differently if they did. And I'd encourage you also, keep plugging away at your portfolio. Just remember, your best defense against being in a situation like this is careful planning, long-term investing, and saving. That's really the best defense that you have in fighting against that silent killer of inflation. Folks, don't be discouraged. God is on the throne, and we got some good things here as well. And we believe that if you honor God with what he has given you, that he will bless you for it indeed. It's a good reminder for us to end our show. Great show today, folks. God willing, we'll do it again tomorrow. We'll see you then.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.